Welcome to Modified Dreams But Not Deterred. I'm Judith. Do you remember your first time? Do you remember what happened your first time? Did you research prior to your first time? Did you talk to others about what their experience was when they experienced their first time? Did you fantasize about it? Did you spend every waking day thinking about what the experience would be like? Did your emotions take the best of you when you planned or prepped for your first time? Did your first time work out to be exactly how you thought it would be? Was it worth the experience of your first time? So whatever the first time is that came to your mind with those questions, it means that there is something about that first experience that has impacted your life. Something that has shaped who you are today. Something that has taught you lessons or given you such great joy. Your first time will be something that you either do not want to experience again, or maybe something that you would want to experience again. Whatever that first time is that you thought about, there are pros and cons to whatever your reflection or remembrance of that first time is. Does it evoke positive memories, or does it evoke pain? The first time I'm talking about, nonetheless, is the first time you flew on an airplane, the first time you moved from one city to the next, the first time you thought about migrating to another country to start your life, the first time you gave yourself an uncomfortable opportunity for change. Do you remember prior to you migrating from another country to a country that you've never been before? Do you remember the conversations you had with people who have experienced that experience that you're attempting to experience? Did your research, did your imagination, did the things you hoped for turned out to be exactly what your experience was? So for me, I remember growing up and always seeing the airplane in the sky, and it was always referred to as the big bird. And then there were many people who have experienced flying before, and they would tell you, like, when you're in the sky, it feels like a pothole if the weather isn't good. And I would think, oh, that's quite interesting. But it isn't amazing to be flying on an airplane, aircraft, aeroplane, plane, whatever you refer to it as, a means of transportation. You might have been flying with hundreds of people, but you trust that man-made means of transportation will take you from destination A to destination B. Think about how you felt that first day, all the preparation that went into that moment. That first day, you pulled your suitcase out of the car, you walked into the airport. The anticipation. And if you're anything like me, my experience was, I remember I really needed to go to the bathroom prior to traveling. And many people have, I would call it like that flight sickness, so to speak, where the day before you fly, for some reason you find yourself having to go poop quite often, TMI. But that moment you pull your suitcase into the airport, you weigh your suitcase, you check in. But that moment you go through immigration and you sat, and then you boarded. That first time you walked on the plane and you sat in your seat, and you're like, wow. What was your first thought? That moment the plane goes down the runway and the pilot says, preparing for takeoff. What was that moment like for you? And the first time it takes off in the sky and it soars, and you experience that first elevation, how did that feel? And if your flight obviously is more than 10 minutes, you had some time to immerse yourself in the experience. Think about those rushing thoughts that went through your head, those plans you had, those obstacles you anticipated, but know that somehow with God's help, you would overcome them. I want you to think about that very moment. I then want you to think about when the pilot says preparing for landing, and you can start seeing the landmark of where you're going to go. You're no longer in the skies of clouds, but that you can see buildings or vegetation. I want you to think about that anticipation, and then I want to think about when you landed, you went through immigration, you got your luggage, and you walked out of the airport. Think about that sense of relief and big possibility or possibilities that came over you with that transportation. Think about the first thing you saw, the first thing you ate, the first thing you thought of this new experience, this new world of possibility. For me, I remember it was still winter or going into spring, and I remembered that I got the opportunity right after I had an appendectomy, about 2-3 months after. And I remember the excruciating pain that I experienced going through that surgery, but also my journey to that first experience. But I was hopeful. I saw it as a blessing to be given that opportunity. But I remember the first day I walked out of the airport, or that moment, and I thought, oh my God, this is so cold. I remember going back inside, I'm like, this is crazy. I thought the experience of being in the cold would be like being in a deep freezer, but it was mind-boggling. It was so immediate. I could feel it from my toes to my brain. And to be honest with you, at the time, it's not like it was January, so it was bearable weather. So the shared experiences of what people told me about how the weather felt was not necessarily accurate from my perspective. And there were many different opinions or thoughts that were shared prior to my experience of what it would be like to be in a country where it's different. You meet people from different backgrounds, different races, different religion, different ethnicity, and stuff like that. Your experience will be different than your sister's experience or your brother's experience. But what we can all do is to take it as an opportunity that was given to us to create change, to impact someone else's future, to impact our own future, and to impact our generation. So in moments when you feel overwhelmed, in moments when it feels like life isn't going the way you hope they would be, I want you to think about that moment when you decided that you were going to take a chance, take an opportunity. I want you to think about that mindset. Maybe it was just an opportunity that came up and you thought about, well, you know what, I'm just going to take a chance on life. Or maybe you were calculating. You think about every step, every possibility. You had a plan of what you want to do with that opportunity. I remember the first time when I had the opportunity to be here and to have a job and stuff. When I came the first time, I was not looking for a second job. I remember my concern was how close is the nearest college. You see, as an immigrant, we are predisposed to certain obstacles, such as the need to adjust. When we migrate, we're adjusting to the different customs. We might be adjusting to the weather. We're adjusting to the language. Education is power. So whether or not you're moving from one state to the other or one city to the other, you have to have a plan. And all of us have a zeal or a goal for better. I think that's what life is about, really. We want our circumstances to be a little bit better than they were yesterday, than they were last year. But don't forget to immerse yourself in the small growth in your life. Because many times people get so overwhelmed because I had a goal of 4 years and I want to get my bachelor's and I want to become a manager, and 4 years goes by and it doesn't happen. Maybe you became a supervisor. Maybe you achieved your associate. Maybe there are other things in your life that became an achievement. Focus on those things and still give yourself credit for making an advancement. It's not just materialistic things that should give you hope, that should give you a sense of worth and growth. If you have health today, health is wealth. Perfect health is wealth. There are so many people who are experiencing so many setbacks in their lives, or so many people that has achieved so many things, but they don't have the health to experience the rewards of their hard work. So I wanted to take a pause. I wanted to take a pause today and think about your first experience. I want you to think about how you prepared for that first experience. Maybe it's an experience of purchasing your first house. Maybe it's your experience of seeing your grandchild for the first time. Maybe it's your first day of retirement. Maybe it's your first day of finally deciding to go to the doctor, your first day of overcoming your fear of heights. Think about something that you experienced for the first time. Think about those moments leading up to you having that experience, whether it be your preparation, your anticipation, whether it be that you daydreamed about it. Find something to think about and think about how your experience went. How did you feel in that moment? Did it give you hope? Did it reassure you? Did it scare you? Because there's something in that opportunity that is able to shape our mindset in those moments when we're unsure, in those moments when we're broken, in those moments when we feel hopeless, or in those moments when we're looking for that one thing to motivate us to get up today and keep moving. Remember, you do not have to deter your dreams. You can modify them.